Hey YouTube, so I'm back with another video today. I just wanted to talk briefly about my breastfeeding and formula feeding experience with Priya. So my goal for Priya was to exclusively breastfeed her, meaning no formula at all, for at least the first 6 months of her life. Ideally, I would have loved to breastfeed her for 12 months. And when I say exclusive, I mean I didn't want to put an ounce of formula in her body for at least 6 months of her life. Well, that didn't happen. She was exclusively breastfed for 4 days. Yeah, 4 measly little days. And I was beyond disappointed that I wasn't able to continue exclusively breastfeeding her for a lot longer, but that's just the way things worked out. What happened was she, on her 5th day of life, 5 days after she was born, we had to take her to her pediatrician for her first doctor visit. And she had dropped a lot of weight. She was born at 6 pounds, 13 ounces, and if I remember correctly, by her 5th day of life, she weighed 6 pounds, 1 ounce. That's 12 ounces, almost a full pound that she lost in the first 5 days of her life. So that was no good. So her pediatrician recommended that I start supplementing with formula because she just wasn't getting enough from my breast milk. Actually, by 5 days, 5 days after she was born, I don't even think my milk had really come in yet. So she really wasn't getting much, and whatever she was getting just wasn't enough because she was just losing too much weight. So, again, me being a new mom, I don't know much, didn't know much at the time. The pediatrician said the best thing for her would be for me to supplement with formula. So I said, hey, whatever's going to be best for my baby. I didn't want her to continue losing weight. I wasn't sure when my milk was going to fully come in. So that's what we started. On the 5th day of her life, we started with formula. I breastfed her as much as I could. I pumped, and I also put her on the breast as much as I could, but she wasn't getting enough. So she was mainly, from 5 days old, she was mainly getting formula. So we started her off with Similac breastfeeding supplement. That's the formula that you give babies who are also getting breast milk. And we did that for about 2 months, 2.5 months, until my milk basically just dried up. I was still putting her on the breast, I was still pumping, and when I pumped, I noticed that less and less milk was coming out. So at about 2.5 months, I would say, I decided, you know what, there's just no point in pumping anymore or putting her on the boob because nothing's coming out. So at that point, we stopped. I stopped breastfeeding her altogether, and we switched her to Similac Sensitive, and that's for babies with a little bit of a sensitive stomach. She was very gassy when she was born, and when she was very young, she was very gassy, so I decided to put her on the Similac Sensitive. So we transitioned her from the Similac supplement, breastfeeding supplement, to the Sensitive. And the way that I do my transitions is I just mix the two. I do half and half. We did half of the Similac breastfeeding supplement formula and then half of the Similac Sensitive. And I did that until I felt like she was used to the new formula. And then after that, she was just completely 100% on the Similac Sensitive formula. It comes in the orange container, and she did very well on that. Never had any issues with either of them, actually, with either of the formulas. And she was on the Similac Sensitive probably until she was about 4 months old, 4 or 5 months old. And the reason I switched her from the Similac Sensitive to the one she's taking now, which is the Similac Advanced in the blue pack, is because I read the ingredients on the Similac Sensitive package. I'm a person who loves to read ingredients. I read it on my food and I read it on Priya's formula. And I noticed that the very first ingredient on that formula was corn syrup solids. Now, I just assumed that the first ingredient would be milk or some kind of a milk product. I couldn't understand why corn syrup would be the very first ingredient in this formula. And if you know anything about reading ingredients, when you read your ingredient list, if there are 5 ingredients in your food, the first one is what your food is mainly made up of. The very last one is the least thing that's in your food. So for the most part, her formula was made of corn syrup, and that bothered me. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that the Sensitive formulas, not just Similac, but other brands also, they will take out the lactose, which is the milk, and they put in corn syrup in its place, and that didn't work for me. So I switched her again. I did my transition. We did half of the Sensitive formula and half of the advanced formula until she got used to the advanced. And since then, from about 5 months to now, she's 8 months now, she's been on the Similac Advance. And again, she's doing very well. But I really didn't understand the whole corn syrup thing, so I just advise you, before you even start your baby on a new formula or anything, baby food, read the ingredients, make sure you understand what you're giving your baby, and make sure that you're okay with what you're giving your baby, because I wasn't cool with that. So she's on the Similac Advanced, I believe. Let's look at it. Here it is. This is what it looks like. Comes in the blue. And the first ingredient is non-fat milk. Second ingredient is lactose, and that's what it should be. Shouldn't be corn syrup. And again, I did a little bit of research, and I found that doctors, pediatricians, only recommend the sensitive formula if you absolutely have to give your baby a sensitive formula. If they vomit a lot, or they have diarrhea a lot, or very gassy, that's when you give sensitive formula. If, once your baby seems okay, you can transition them off of a sensitive formula. And again, I'm no expert. Always check with your pediatrician before you make any decisions, but that's what we did, and that's what worked for us. But honestly, I highly recommend breastfeeding. I really regret not trying a little harder to breastfeed her longer. Again, as a new mom, I knew nothing. When the doctor said, start giving her formula, I said, hey, if that's what's best for her, if that's what's going to help her gain weight, that's what I'll do. And that's what I did when she was 5 days old. I truly believe that had I waited a little longer, maybe until she was a month old, I think my milk would have come in a little bit better, and I would have been able to breastfeed her a lot longer than 2.5 months. So that's my one regret. I do wish that I had tried a little longer to exclusively breastfeed her, because the more your baby is on the boob and the more you're pumping, the more your milk will come in. So because she was getting formula, she wasn't on the boob as much, and I didn't have to pump as much. And so my milk didn't come in the way that it should have come in. So I don't know. I could be wrong. I really don't know, but that's my assumption, and I do wish that I had waited a little bit longer before I introduced formula. But hey, you live and you learn, and she's 8 months now. She's exclusively on formula. She's also eating solids, which I will do another video on that. But yeah, at this point she's doing formula and solids, and she's doing well. Can't really complain. In another 4 months we'll be done with the formula altogether, so I'm not worrying about it too much. But for future children that I have, I will work a little harder to breastfeed them longer. And if and when the doctor recommends that I introduce formula, I believe that I will probably hold out and wait a little bit longer just to see, just to give my milk a chance to fully come in before I give up on it, because breast milk is the best thing for your baby. You can ask any pediatrician or anybody out there, breast milk is the best thing for a newborn baby. It just is. Formula can't compare. It doesn't compare. It will never compare. It doesn't matter how great they make it. It will never compare to breast milk. So that's my one regret. And if I had it to do over again, I would do it a little differently. And in the future, I plan to do it a little differently. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.